Hi, my name is Jen Liu. I am the head of Human Capital Advisors for Training Vision Institute and VisiONE HR Solutions. I am responsible for developing and implementing HR strategies to support the organization's overall business plan and strategic directions, especially in talent management, performance management, change management, training and development, compensations and benefit, and succession planning. I work with the company executive management team to create a sound plan of management successions that relates to the strategies and objective of the company. VisiONE offers a suite of human capital solutions that trigger strategic thinking among business leaders, supported by rich people analytics and the formulations of actionable insights. We are proud that we can provide you one-stop HR solutions of talent acquisition strategy, performance management, learning and development, succession planning, leadership development, and job description design or redesign for combinations of job functions or create new job roles. Our mission is to incorporate the practice of HR consulting with a discipline of IO psychology to create a one-stop solution. We establish long-term and strategic relationships with our clients and help them to transform today's hurdles into tomorrow's successes. We seek to enable and empower people in organizations to achieve high results under the ever-changing business needs. The biggest priority for VisiONE is to provide HR solutions and consulting services for emerging companies in Singapore and ASEAN market. VisiONE will be a vibrant startup HR tech firm that provides ecosystem and emerging across the region. I foresee human capital is dealing with extreme challenges in developing talent, building the 21st century workforce, being an agile organizations, retaining the top talent, and providing strategic decision-making. It is required for talent to be competent in applying new technical skills and core skills. Core skills are the critical skills that everyone needs to be fully equipped with new ways of thinking, working, and living in this 21st century era. We foresee those emerging industries will be facing the challenges of having sufficient in-house solutions. They need HR services, assessment tool, and a talent management system to support their rapid growth.
Right, a very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to our webinar that's Conflict and Negotiation by William Chua today, brought to you by RecruiTalents. Now, before we begin today, we actually have one more video just to show you because we are waiting for just a few more participants to join us. So for those of you who were here earlier, you might have seen the video already, but we just request we will actually be playing one more video by Mr. David Kui, our CEO himself. So do sit back, enjoy and relax before we start. Thank you. Turn on this one and join now.
Hi, my name is Jen Liu.
My name is David Kui, the Chief Executive Officer of Training Vision Institute. Well, we have always kind of be very clear about our focus, which is the leader in human and organization development. When the whole aspect of the human potential, that means the ability to bring people to the level of their maximization of their value, their potential, developing their capabilities, their competencies, this will in effect drive towards strong organizational development and of course the growth of the organization. The business environment has become more complex and there's rapid rate of change. So I think we have worked on this aspect and we have found it to be common in terms of alignment, understanding the past, generating a very clear understanding of what's happening in your current organization at the present. And it's from there that you springboard into an ability to have that foresight as how you navigate the organization forward. And this really rise and fall by the virtue of leadership. So when we are able to really use analytics to know where an organization stands, where is the current state of the team performance, where is the current state of the individual's potential, whether it is from a standpoint of recruitment, performance management, learning and development, or even succession planning, when we're able to have the right data, the right solutions, the right interventions can then come on board. So that therefore strengthens and becomes a force multiplier for the way that VisiONE and Training Vision Institute can serve our clients out there.
Right, a very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome once again to our webinar, that's Conflict and Negotiation by Mr. William Chua by RecruiTalents. Today's webinar is brought to you by RecruiTalents. Once again, we do have this webinar every month, on the last Wednesday of every month. So thank you for joining us. I hope you have had your lunch, and those of you who are still having it, thank you for letting us join you and be part of your meal right now. So I hope you have actually, energized yourself, because you'll be starting right away. Right before we start, I just want to share a few ways we can enjoy this webinar. For those of you who have registered with us, whether it's via LinkedIn or Eventbrite, please do make sure your name is named as per your registration name. This is so that we can send to you the information and the webinar recording after the session today. All right, do note that all the participants will be muted throughout the entire webinar. This is to facilitate a smooth webinar. And for those of you who have questions, not to worry, because we will have a Q&A session later. And along the way, if you have any questions at all, just post them in our chat box and we will be referring and directing them to the speaker himself. Last but not least, we will be having a recording once again. So all of you here, we will be sending the recording session right after today's webinar. Okay, today's webinar agenda as follows. We do include these few points, but we have so many more rich insights by Mr. William himself. So today's takeaways will include the definition of negotiation, sources of conflict, dimension of conflict and disputes, negotiation strategies, and many more which William will bring to us. All right, let us introduce ourselves. We are once again RecruiTalents. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Training Vision. And we are here actually, what we aim to do is to provide recruitment and tailored HR consultancy services for both our talents and businesses. So I believe many of you have actually found us on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to us should your business or yourself need any of these services. We're always here to help you. In partnership is VisiONE and Training Vision Institute. VisiONE is our partner where we provide HR consulting and the discipline of IO psychology to provide assessment tools and psychometric tools for our talents and businesses. Now, at the end of today's session, we'll be providing a complimentary assessment tool. So do feel free, please do stay on to the end. And if we can contact you, should you be interested in this assessment tool. All right, and also last but not least is our parent company, Training Vision Institute. We've been around for 31 years, and Training Vision is a leading adult education institute based right here in Singapore. So we will also be actually sharing on the courses and the short courses and long courses that we have right after this webinar. Okay, before we begin, we like to make this webinar a lot more interactive and engaging. So right here, right now, we will be pulling out a Mentimeter poll. Okay, I'm sure all of you came in with certain expectations and hopes of what you want to see in the webinar. So let us know if as we show now on the screen, the Mentimeter poll. Just give us a moment here to pull out the poll. Okay, you will see here, you can log on to menti.com and key in the code number to let us know as we collect this word cloud, what you hope to take back from today's webinar. You can also access the link that will be sent in the chat box shortly. Log on to www.menti.com and use the code 83685226. Let us know. I see a word resolution. Very nice, let's keep them coming. Any more thoughts you had? Now today's about conflict and negotiation. Are there any similar related topics or points that you might want our speaker to actually touch on? That's true, we'll definitely cover that, useful ways to negotiate. Mediation. That's right, and coming to conflict and negotiation, a very crucial point is actually to be able to mediate between the two or more parties. So we'll definitely be covering this with William today. Are there any more? We'll just give about 1 to 2 more minutes because I believe you need some time to log in. How to avoid confrontations, I believe. I believe William here will share with us this very unique point here, how to avoid confrontations. Do we face them? Do we avoid them? If we face them, you know, how do we do so? Success, that's a very broad topic right there, which we can actually segue into our webinar today. Now, along the way, if you have any questions or any more points to add on, you can add them on in the chat box. We'll just leave that on for about another 30 seconds. All right, and if we're good, at this time, I also want to introduce our speaker right here. We can just spotlight him over here. Mr. William Chua. Hi, William. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all of you.
Yes, thank you, William. And in fact, at this time, we'd like to hand over this, and as he takes over this, we expound on this word cloud. I want to just introduce him and put your virtual hands, together to welcome him as we bring William aboard. Thank you, William, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. And if you were to take a look at the slides that's going to be shown, they talk about me, humbled by that, but the reality is that I'm a maverick, you might say. And if some of you have watched the movie Maverick, there's a lot of challenging situations, conflict, and how you negotiate through. Now, I am basically what I call a practitioner, more of a practitioner beside that, because I don't believe in just chalk and board. I think we got to translate what we have acquired, the skills and knowledge, and put into practice. Okay, let's look at what we have written here pertaining to the Mentimeter: resolution, success, useful ways to negotiate, mediations, avoid confrontations, beautiful things itself. Conflict can arise from a variety of sources. But in reality, many experts see it as a function of such things happening at the workplace. Without fail, workplace is definitely full of challenges. And all of us, when you attend here, you are concerned about those challenges. Workplace confrontations or issue that we have has to deal with personality, personal and professional relationship. And when we talk about how to avoid confrontations, I think we got to go deeper to understand who am I to make the difference. If you know who am I to make the difference, that's later on we'll share with you some other courses where you can tell, say, okay, if I want to improve, understand better on conflict and negotiations, I need to understand who am I. Then you will be able to approach situations and build on that professional relationship. So there are challenges in the organizations, in any organization, cultural differences, working environments. Importantly, top of the list, you can say demands of the marketplace. And of course, every day we know that without fail, every day is competitions. As organizations increasingly use teamwork, differences among team members can lead to conflict. No one is an island. So competitions is one of the challenges. Limited resources in organizations. Everything from office space to budgets may put people in competitions with one another. So if you look at limited resources, how do you use that? Allocate scarce resources fairly to avoid this. So I'm giving you some of those pointers which we are covering, and it includes values, goals, priorities. Confrontation can occur when people in an organization don't agree on strategic directions or basic priorities. So to avoid that, earlier we need to have an agreement on goals, large or small, right, can help to avoid this. So we are going to how to look into the situations itself. Another point that we are looking at conflicts will be poorly defined responsibility, right? Now, later on, we go dive deeper into that, but I'd like to share with you what you are seeing on the screen. Like John F. Kennedy mentioned that, let us never negotiate out of fear. And earlier I mentioned that, be a maverick. Maverick with a cause, with a purpose, right? So be bold enough to take the step and say, what am I going to do about it? And how am I going to do about it? So John F. Kennedy mentioned, let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. Even making a decisions for yourself. Am I going to attend this webinar? And it's during my lunch? Why not have it attending with your lunch, right? For your benefit. So, and because in negotiations for yourself, even each party should gain from negotiations. What do you get out of these sessions today? Let's look on the next slides. And we are covering on the stages of negotiation process. Let's look at the stages there. There are many ways to look at it, but I'm going to give you a simple one. You need to be prepared for negotiations. You need to probe into it. You need to propose. These are all part of planning. If you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. I'm sure many of you heard this. So prepare, probe, understand the stakeholder, get yourself ready the list of propositions. Define what are the ground rules. And with the respective party involved, exchange informations. Have more clarifications exactly what you're going to be discussing for. We call it agenda. And when you are in place there, at least everybody has a direction. Once you have the directions, you can go into the next stage of, let's go into the bargaining, you might say. Or if you have a situations, let's look into how we can solve the problems. Find a solution. And always look at it as always look at positive approach. Right? So the stages of that, you can go into preparing it, defining, clarification, clarify exactly what are the stakeholders required, bargaining, so looking for a solution, concluding it, and implementing that. Let's look at how we plan for negotiations. You can look at that. You might see that there are 7 steps. Some say that okay, we have 5 steps, right? If you are well prepared, it doesn't matter what are the steps, but how do you summarize it? That there's a flow there. So for starts, let's just make sure that you conduct some research pertaining to what you are negotiating. Know your objective well enough and the objective of the party involved and other stakeholder. Prepare to provide information to all the stakeholder or party involved. Understand, assess the concession service. That means the terms you are willing to give up or compromise. The best solution we want is a win-win solution. Do understand the limitations on your authority, your side and the other stakeholder. Knowing the limit of your authority and create that strategy. So how do you plan this? It's very critical for you to have a flow, get it all ready before you approach the other stakeholder. Let's look at sources of conflict. And sources of conflict, which I mentioned earlier, but let me summarize it. It's information conflict. Did you get the information correctly? In organization, in team itself, right? When you are dealing with your team, people in your organization, the management, all this has to do with information conflict, value conflicts. Everyone have a different values. You see things from different perspective. Interest conflict, relations conflicts, structural conflicts even. But I want you to take note of 3 very, very common conflicts that's happening in many organizations, even to ourselves. Why am I doing more than the other person? There's tasks. My colleagues is doing less. Why am I doing more? So task conflict, relationship conflict, or value conflict. These 3 conflicts are very common in organizations. In order to understand that, the dimensions of conflict or dispute, I'm going to summarize what we call relationship, emotional, or cooperative, pertaining to you as an individual, your perceptions on thinking. I call it the 3H. Head is your thinking process, your thinking. Second H is your emotion, is your heart. Head, heart, that's your feeling. Third H is a doing. Then I call it the hands. So you have the head, the heart, and the hands. If you have these 3, alignment is there, thinking, feeling, and your doing will be much clearer. So every time, remember that when you are in a conflict or into negotiations, are you thinking? And thinking is part of the brain. We call it prefrontal cortex. You might have all the information stored in your neocortex. That's part of the brain. You prepare it nicely. But when you are in negotiations, you need to be very agile because of the dynamic of the situations. We call it in a VUCA world, VUCA. Probably some of you, I'm sure many of you heard that. It's very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that is now in the business world. So you need to understand the dimension of conflict, and you need to have this alignment between your head, your heart, and your doing. The thinking, feeling, and your doing. Let's move forward and take a look at what are your desired goals to be achieved. In organizations, of course, when you are with your colleagues, you want to have awesome relationship. You want to go to work and you're feeling good about it. You enjoy it, that relationship there. And if you have good relationship, remember the 3H, that you apply the 3H, you have great relationship. We are going deeper into relationship had to do, who am I that makes a difference? What are your thinking? What are your feelings? And your doing, your actions. And that, if you get aligned, you will have the called performance and rewards. That's your desired goal. You want good relationship, you want to have good performance, and you know organizations will definitely reward you based on your performance. Performance, rewards is based on your end results. Now, let's look at the stakeholder involved. Who are the stakeholder? Broad, a lot of it, right? And everyone you meet, internal or external stakeholder, they play a very important role in helping you to understand, to make a decisions. So let's look at who are the stakeholders. Bear in mind, you must look at it broadly now, from rethink it of, I'll call it rethink your counterparts. Think of them counterparts. Analyze your counterparts. Never overlook many concerned parties in the ecosystem when you are into conflict or negotiations. Everyone's matters. Competitors in your organization, internal, external, supplier, customer, and even these people, their competitor, their supplier, their customer. So it's called the ecosystem. So stakeholders are very broad, very wide. And when you talk after the stakeholder, beside the stakeholder, you need to understand the cultural diversity. How wide are the cultural factor and the diverse working, I would say that population, the people that you engage with, they are critical in understanding to help you to understand how am I going to negotiate with different cultural factor. And in Singapore, it's wonderful. We have diversity. Diversity definitely help you to grow and reach you in understanding how we're going to engage beyond Singapore. Bear in mind, our businesses is more than just Singapore, it's beyond Singapore. And now beside the SME, we are expanding into multinational, and in Singapore, you have, in your organizations, you have different people from across the world. And they call negotiating even across boundaries. Boundaries, there's no longer the space, it's about the mindset even. And moving on from that, let's look at your goals itself, priority of your goals, evaluation of possible trade-off. What is it that you need to give and take? And it's, like I mentioned earlier, it's very dynamic. You need to be very agile. You need to understand exactly what you are looking at. Not all conflicts, bear in mind, not all conflicts within an organization or our organization is unhealthy. A conflict between and among people within an organization or out of an organization can quickly become counterproductive, divisive in a sense, and very destructive if not properly managed. That's why negotiation is critical. Conflict may develop over any numbers of issue or factor. But earlier when I mentioned the 5 appear regularly, and let me reinforce the 5 points that we are talking about. Number 1 is competition. Number 2, limited resources. Number 3, values, goals, and your priorities. Number 4, poorly defined responsibility. 5, change and the human drive for success. So these 5 appear very regular in organizations, conflict within the organization, or external relationship with your competitors. You need to understand how you need to review and agree on how do you embrace these challenges ahead. Take change, for example, without fail, many changes, including those, talking about in organization, many changes, including those to annual budgets, organizations' priorities, the line of responsibility or the limits of your responsibility. This morning, interestingly, I was asked these questions. They say, hi, William, how would you expand on your role of responsibility? I said, you can discuss on the empowerment, right? Full autonomy, right? The space, I call it the space. So when people ask me, how are you going to work with me? I say, how much space are you giving me? If you give me more space, right, then I'm able to be more creativity. But you stifle me up. You set boundaries. Then I have limitations. I can't work in a silo because that's allow you not to be more creative and be more innovative. So you need to understand exactly embracing change now, and change is here to stay. And understanding that change, you can say, okay, what can I do? If I embrace change, can that help me to drive for success? Definitely. It's a natural thing. Conflict can arise as a result of the natural sense of goal orientations. What's your goal now? What am I looking for? So many organizations, the other part about drive is many organizations actively, and I use it actively, foster a sense of competitions among their people, creating many competitors and few rewards. Interesting, right? And that's the reality itself. So because of that space being limited, you need to go into competitions and you need to negotiate. And conflict is there, but you got to negotiate and say, okay, what am I going to do about it? My answer to them when I was asked that, and it's called personal development. Think about these simple words, and I call it refresh. And I use it before COVID came about. I said we need to continuously refresh, reinvent, or recreate ourselves to prepare ourselves for the VUCA world. So let's look at these situations. Do you have a conflict within yourself? What am I going to do with myself to embark on this competitive world? It is here to stay. You cannot take that equation out of it. It's here to stay in a very competitive world. So let's look at the next slides. Steps to develop and supporting your argument for negotiations. This earlier we covered on that. Understanding the facts, know exactly what kind of argument you want to go into it, and understand the other side, all the stakeholder that you need to know. A holistic approach in negotiation. Move on to the next slides there. And covering that with already involving all the stakeholder. And stakeholder earlier I mentioned is have to do with the decision maker, the gatekeeper, the influencer, the information provider. The various role you play in negotiation process. Complex it is. You need to be very dynamic and very agile because each and every one of these people have their own perceptions on things. Moving on. What is a negotiator authority? And we covered that. Limit to your authority. Who is his or her client? What interests are you driving this? And this is to summarizing earlier we covered pertaining to need to know the involved party. Let's move on. There's a time to evaluate after all these situations is been done. Preparations on stage in the theater itself, right? Preparations, so that means before and on theater, the stage itself, how you handle situations. After the situations, you need to go into reflection. And the reflection is good. The saying goes, sometime you win, and sometime I'm sure most of you would not be using the word lose, right? And many times you learn. There's no losing in anything, in conflict or negotiations. Sometimes you win and many times you learn. And that is a critical part of it. How do we see things? Diversity, we cover on diversity issue that need to be considered. Wonderful. And it's a diverse, big things now. And I embrace that in Singapore. Wonderful. There's a lot of opportunity to engage different people, different mindset. Let's move on to the next one. And we talk about the negotiation strategy. You need to plan that. These are summarizing on what we have covered earlier. But I want you to take note on the strategy that you want to do. It's one of the important strategy, and I always goes into asking myself that question. What am I going to do about it now? What did I learn from the last challenges? And moving ahead, what action am I going to take? In this learning world or lifelong learning, we need to stay current. And I love these statements when some of them tell me, says, William, you're getting old. I said, no, I'm not. I'm vintage. Wine, right? Not old wines, vintage wine. And you stay current, is called vintage wine in new packaging. The new packaging is continuously get yourself involved to understand, take up courses to stay relevant, to match the current situation. So negotiation strategy, you can have plan, but out there are lots of challenges. People behavior are very dynamic. Even people, the word VUCA is before it was used to be applied in the military. Now it's in the business world. Now it's even to the extent of your behavior. Each and every one of us need to be very agile and dynamic. Let's ask ourselves, what am I going to do about it? Right? Understand the evaluation. So this is going through, reflecting on what you have gone through and taking the step forward. Let's look at the next slides. Moving forward, what are you going to do about it? Again, measuring your employee negotiation ability. If you are a leader, bear in mind, and every one of you are leaders in your own rights. I was asked a question last night. When I say it's okay, what jobs are you dealing with? Which role you play? And one of my associates tell me, so I'm not playing, my role is not a leadership. I say, why do you say that? Every time you make a decisions, you are a leader in your own rights. Think of yourself in that perspective, in that role that you play. Think like a futurist. And if every one of you think like a futurist, you can take many steps ahead of you. Then you are the game changer. Besides being a game changer, consider this. Be the first mover. Everybody say, I know about it. But are you the first mover? Or are you just another follower? So a very simple thing, in whatever you do, be the game changer, be the first mover, be bold enough, be that maverick. With enough information, data itself, you know that you reduced, right? Or you improve chances of success. Let's look at the next slides again. I would like you to take note when I use the part on about you. That's called the psychological capital. These are 5, or should I say the 4 top one. If you will go into assessment about who am I, it's very powerful. You need to understand your strength. But under the psychology capital, it is covered as willpower hope. I see several paths and use my resources to move towards my goal. So every time I always see opportunity, and if not, I create possibility, whether it's for yourself in business dealing, in conflict, in negotiations, in your personal growth. The key words is that take note of these 4 very important things. Willpower, hope, resilient. I can learn from adversity, bounce forward and upward. Resilient. Optimism. I believe I can positively influence things to work out. Confidence. I believe in my own ability to achieve what I aspire to. Now, I sit here or in front of you, I tell you, I strongly have this strength and I strongly believe it. Not just by words, I act on it. And that's why people see my doing it, that consistency in your behavior allow people to know your sincerity. So importantly, not just words, but be a practitioner. Take small steps. And every day, you take one steps, in a month, you get easily 30 changes, a year 365. Even if you repeat it, you reinforce, you change the pattern of your behavior, change the habits, and that become your character. And these are called psychology capital. And once you have that, whatever you're doing, you're providing people that psychology safety. And then your team of people will just love you because they feel they're safe under your leadership, under your decision. And when you negotiate, people see that sincerity in you. So who am I makes the difference. You decide on that. Let's move on. Which was the most important takeaway point for you? Let me pass it on to Vance, the host.
Okay, thank you, William. Thank you so much for such a really rich and insightful seminar. Actually, we have time now for some questions. And before that, we want to know, of all the points that William shared, what was one of the most important point for you in sharing? So we'll be pulling up a poll right now before we move on to the Q&A session. So let us know of at least these 4 topics that were covered. Was there anything that stood out to you that was a very strong takeaway point? This will help us also in the Q&A session to be able to lead our questions in that direction. Oh, looks good. They're all learning. So I see, William, that most of them actually are really very edified by the negotiation strategies. I believe there's some practical tips there that we have shared, followed by the sources of conflict, and of course the definitions of negotiation. Right, with that, we will actually be bringing that to our Q&A session, in which if you have any questions, do feel free to post in the chat box. And we have some questions here already with us that some people have actually directly messaged me. In the meantime, if you have any questions out there, I'm sure after listening to all this, and as we shared also, William is, the word is maverick in the Learning and Development League. There's so many people who actually look forward to his personal connection, the way he teaches. So this is your chance. If you have questions, you've already, have that question in your head, do share that with us, because this is a good time to just freely ask. Okay, if we were waiting for the questions to pop up in the chat box, allow me to share one that was actually posted to myself. This was shared to the technical support just now. The question is, can we apply negotiation strategies? How do we apply them to different generations? I believe we deal with different age groups, different generations in different companies. So how do we apply different negotiation techniques to different generations? William?
Great questions. And I always have that question being asked. It's about the mindset. Change the way you see things. A lot of times through changes itself, we look at the lenses that we are looking at. Change the way you think, and the way you look at things will change. And the obstacles that hold us back from learning is we tend to get stuck in the same position, say, okay, I am this position. This is how I should think. Nothing written in any book stating clearly under scientific proof that at this age you must think that way. I engage with different age group, and as young as 5 years old to as senior as 84. And I communicate with them. So they say there's a generation gap or communication gap. So my simple answer to you is communicate with them. How do you communicate? And that is the key thing. we need to communicate. And communications, you will break it down, is your listening skills. Lots of time we tend to say that active listening is important. You are absolutely right. But I would like you to think further on another word called deep listening. So to cross that barrier of generation for another generation, consider deep listening. Then we are together, we are in a journey of exploring and understanding and breaking down the barrier, right, big or small. In that context, practice another one is called pause principle. When someone communicates with you, young or old, don't be in a rush, right, to reply that you are not going into deep listening. Pause, look into the eyes, give a smile, show that I am not only active, I am deep listening, understanding it, feeling you. So the 3 H, you're thinking, you're feeling, and you're doing, which is communicating, will give you more effective results. You can't take away the equation. I see here Samantha Neo. How can we improve negotiation skills? Very good questions. And I just mentioned that about the equation is always about communicating, understanding the stage. So negotiation skills, you need to prepare that what is your needs, what is your party that you're dealing with, what are their needs. It can't be you. You cannot go inside there with a very competitive mindset. I want to win. But you should be going inside there. Let's look at how flip the me, flip it to a we positions. When you look at me, myself and I, then you will always have that kind of competitive position. I want to win, right? But if you go and say that, how can we, you and me, come together and together we go into win-win? That is called collaboration. And moving ahead, many organizations need to move into that collaborations to reduce or maximize on your resources. And many a time people choose not to do it because of power. I'm the boss. I'm in control, right? I want to win. And it's power. Position yourself because you're looking at the end results. What is it for you and for me? What is it for not just me? And now it's become a we. Flip it. And if you know the fundamental about this, the rest is just getting information, data, all the information are there. It has to do with the human factor. The skill of negotiation is who are you? What's your soft skills? The rest are all hard skills. Data, information are hard skills.
Yes. Thank you, William. I think that was a very, very insightful, actually add on, I think, to what the question was. And it's very broad to say what we can improve on in negotiation. And actually at this time, because we do have 5 minutes to the end of the webinar, I would just like to take some time to give it to William to just share even on the aspect of improving ourselves and upskilling on 2 courses and 2 modules actually that we have. That will be in the next slide. We have on the developing personal effectiveness as well as our leadership course. So just give William about 1 to 2 minutes to maybe touch on that.
Earlier, I mentioned that we need to stay current, right? And all of you, deep in you, you have that. It's that potential in that. And some of this potential is yet to be discovered. You are, I always tell them, every one of you, you are like a rock, a diamond, yet to be polished. Or sometimes you know it, but you did not have the opportunity, the platform to showcase it. Refresh what you have learned before. Put into practice. Unfold your wings. And we can take up this course, will help you to go deeper, dive into it, start discovering, who am I? It's a very powerful course because once you know who you are, you can move forward. Speed. The next course that we are covering on, and so develop your personal effectiveness is about who am I? Really, how many of you really know who am I? Your strength, your weakness. So I'm sure some of you heard called SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat. Focus on your strength. Develop the strength in you. Then I don't see threat. I always look at it as threat as an opportunity. How do you define it and how do you identify opportunity out of that threat? And all of us, there's so much things that we can do. And my personal experiences with many people that I coach, right, I train until today, big impact. That is about leadership and people management. How can I become a great leader? So once you know about yourself, this is where you can explore. And earlier I mentioned that yesterday they asked me, I said, you need to understand exactly how to optimize on that resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, William. I actually noticed that we do have one more question from Kapal on culture and how it impacts negotiation. Because we are coming to the end of the webinar, just allow us some time maybe to just share on the forms, the feedback survey form we have first. We will come to the question after this. And for those of you who would love to listen in on the comment on this question, please stay on. In the meantime, in view and essence of time for those who actually have to go at 1:30, we'd just like to share with you on the next slide. Yes, this will be our feedback survey form. Okay, we will be sending the link and putting the link now in the chat box because we do have a very hi Arianto, no worries. Yes, thank you for joining us. So we do have a feedback survey form right here. Right, today, only for today, we'll be actually offering a complimentary psychometric assessment together with the report. If you actually just provide us your feedback, let us know how today's webinar has impacted you, or if there's any feedback that you'd like to share with us about this session. Okay, so we'll leave that on the screen for a short while the link is already in the chat box. You can click on that. And in the meantime, we'd like to direct our last question back to William. And William, the question is from Kapal here. What role does culture play in negotiations?
The moment, for my take on this, is the moment we use such words itself, we already set a barrier for ourselves. But if you have to look at it as that's only, to me, it's as only one race, human. And when you negotiate itself, you look at it as I'm dealing with the other stakeholder party who is just as interested in negotiating to have a positive outcome. Then play the role of being a communicator. Listen carefully, focus on the interest versus the person or the culture. Focus on the outcome, focus on the interest. What's the person's interest? What's your interest? Recognize the feeling of the person, listen carefully. Always bear in mind, separate people from the problems. Because when you look at that, it becomes a barrier to you. Keep communicating. And this has to do with earlier, how can we improve negotiation skills, right? Keep communicating, start small. Identify something that is common to the both party, the stakeholder. Start small. And as it goes along, you're able to look in stages and you summarize, what is it? Devise options. Always come up with options that you have. Find the resources, and if you need to cut losses for long-term gain. So you've got to look at all this. When you start about cultural things like that, understand the other party. And I'm sure if you want to understand the culture of the other person also want to understand your culture. That is already bite-sized, small steps to take. And when you meet the person of different culture is able to share that diversity, and both of you enriching. So sometimes we go into too deep, but we are deep optimized on simple steps. And that's why we talk about human factor. So to me, I look at situation I don't look at color, culture, nationality, or anything. I look at the person that I'm dealing with. Let's look at your concern and my concern. And how can we take that small steps together? I hope, Kapal, that did make a big difference to you. Nothing is achieved overnight. It takes repetition, behavior, inculcating the pattern of behavior to form the habits and end up lead you to success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, William. I hope, Kapal, that answer has been helpful, as well as Samantha.
Yes.
Thank you for your question. And
Thank you.
Haryanto, thank you for your text. Just reading the messages that were actually sent to us at the back end. Right, the time is now at 1:32. I want to thank all of you for staying past just about a few more minutes past 1:30 with us. I'm sure today's session must have been really enriching for all of us to really stay on and hang on to every single word William was actually teaching us. Thank you, William.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Melody. All right, so our last page will actually just be our contact us page. Should you have any information that you need or you want to contact William himself, this will be his LinkedIn profile. You can scan the QR code. The links will be in the chat box as well. Also, if you are interested in the VisiONE assessment tool just now, we actually have a assessment demo for both businesses and individuals. So do feel free to scan that as well and to leave us your details, and our consultants will be in touch with you to share more with you. Okay, the time now is 1:33. Just want to thank everyone once again. We've come to the end of the webinar. Do tune in for our monthly series. Our next one will be in August. On the 29th of August, we'll be letting you know, sharing more info on that. And we hope you tune in right there also. And we hope today has been a very useful session for all of you. Thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you soon.
Bye.